What was Israel's military plan for the second attack of Ai? This is a question that we seek to answer today as we continue our verse-by-verse study of the book of Joshua on Walking Through the Bible. Today we're going to discuss Joshua 8 verses 1 to 8, but before we do that, let's read the passage. If you have a Bible with you, turn to Joshua 8 verse 1, but if you don't have a Bible, don't worry, just follow along with us on the screen. The version that we'll be reading from is the New King James Version. So Joshua 8, beginning at verse 1. Now the Lord said to Joshua, "Do not be afraid nor be dismayed. Take all the people of war with you and arise, go up to Ai. See, I have given into your hand the king of Ai, his people, his city, and his land. And you shall do to Ai and its king as you did to Jericho and its king. Only its spoil and its cattle you shall take as booty for yourselves. Lay an ambush for the city behind it." So Joshua arose and all the people of war to go up against Ai. And Joshua chose 30,000 mighty men of valor and sent them away by night. And he commanded them, saying, "Behold, you shall lie in ambush against the city, behind the city. Do not go very far from the city, but all of you be ready. Then I and all the people who are with me will approach the city, and it will come about, when they come out against us, as at the first, that we shall flee before them. For they will come out after us till we have drawn them from the city, where they will say, They are fleeing before us, as at the first. Therefore we will flee before them. Then you shall rise from the ambush and seize the city, for the Lord your God will deliver it into your hand. And it will be, when you have taken the city, that you shall set the city on fire. According to the commandment of the Lord you shall do. See, I have commanded you." In chapter 7, we saw how Israel attacked Ai, but were defeated because of the sin of Achan. With Achan having been dealt with by Joshua and the people, now was the time to go and attack Ai and take it with the Lord's help. Verse 1 of the chapter begins with the Lord telling Joshua to not be afraid or dismayed, but to go take all the people of war and take Ai. The previous defeat at Ai was discouraging for Joshua. He was expecting victory, but unbeknownst to him, there was sin in the camp which brought defeat. But with the sin now taken care of, it was no longer a time to be discouraged. With us today, our own sin or the sins of others can lead us to become discouraged or timid in our walk with Christ. And if left undealt with, it could even cause us to leave the faith. The story here in Joshua reminds us that while there are times of discouragement that do come, that we shouldn't allow them to overtake us. And once the problem is dealt with, we need to move on with boldness. Notice that this time the Lord told Joshua to take all the men of war. Now from verse 3 we know that it says that only 30,000 would actually be involved in this campaign. So the word all doesn't mean here every last soldier. For some would be needed to protect the people at Jericho. Instead, all means all that would be needed to accomplish the goal, with that number being significantly more men than Joshua chose the last time. The reason for needing more men will become clear in a few moments, but it appears the Lord might be giving Joshua a little bit of a rebuke for not consulting with him before attacking Ai the previous time. Sure, the Lord didn't need as large an army to take the smaller Ai, but this city wasn't going to be taken miraculously like Jericho was. So in taking such a small contingent of soldiers without consulting the Lord first, perhaps it showed that Israel had become a little arrogant. Another difference between the attack of Ai and Jericho was that Israel was going to be allowed to take the bounty. The cattle of the land could be spared and used for the people. So as we said a few moments ago, verse 3 says that Joshua selected 30,000 men for this task. Now it is at this verse where some things start to get a little confusing. There are two reasons for this. One, the number of men in verse 3, 30,000, doesn't match the number of men in verse 12, 5,000. And two, the way the story is told involves a lot of repetition and going back and forth, and so it is easy to become confused as to what actually happened and in what order. Piecing it all together, here is the best way to envision in your minds what actually occurred. Joshua did indeed choose 30,000 men in total, but harmonizing it with verse 12 only sent 5,000 of them to lie in ambush that night behind the city, which we'll find is between Bethel and Ai. Joshua then either sent the remaining 25,000 ahead of him, telling them not to advance to Ai until he got there the next morning, Or all 25,000 troops came with Joshua the next morning, but regardless, these 25,000 troops were a separate contingent. The plan was that Joshua and his larger contingent of troops would be used as a decoy in order to draw the men of war out of the city of Ai. Joshua's troops would flee as Israel had done before in order to draw these troops away. With the men of war gone, those 5,000 who lied in ambush would then rush the city, and without the protection of its troops, would be able to conquer the city, for the Lord would deliver the city into their hands. After conquering the city, they were to set it on fire according to the commandment of the Lord. So as you can see, the attack of Ai would be different than the attack of Jericho. They were going to be able to take Ai in one day, where it took in Jericho 7 days before the walls fell. There would be no miraculous collapse of the walls of Ai. Israel would have to use military strategy to fight the people. Now the Lord was with them both times, and thus they succeeded. But God wasn't going to do everything for them. He had done enough to show Israel that he was with them, and so they had to have faith and fight the battles. We'll see how this campaign worked, the Lord willing, in the next lesson. With that, our time is up for today. The Lord willing, we hope you'll join us for tomorrow's discussion of Joshua chapter 8, verses 9 to 17, as we continue our walk through the Bible, one verse at a time. Thank you for watching today's episode. We hope that you found it edifying and ask that you not only subscribe to our channel and podcast, but that you like and share this episode among your friends, so that the saving gospel of Jesus Christ can go out to the whole world.